If you've never utilized automations at all, or you don't know where it is on our site, it's actually in the menu in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see it down here with the settings. So we just click the automations right here and it takes us to our automations page in here. So then depending on your role will depend on what tabs that you're able to see right here. So company automations is a tab that will be available for administrative roles. So that's system admin, owner, and administrative. So my automations is just for you. You as the user, if you want to create an automation flow, there are multiple types. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a run through of that. But if you only want it to apply when you are triggering something, then that is what your automations are for. The company automations will be something that an administrator can set up for the whole team. So then when anybody triggers that automation, it will follow the flow automatically. So I'll just give a basic run through of, we do have the pre-made automations over here. If you just need like kind of a starting point when you're on your own and you're working with this, you can come in here and select any one of these and then click use and customize. So I'll just create one and we'll just go through like a really basic set of particular options. So right away, you'll have to name it. So it will be required that you just type in a name of the automation. And then you have the option for an event-based or a time-based. So event-based means when a certain event happens, the automation will trigger. And obviously time-based means under a certain condition of a time frame. So we'll start with event-based because those will probably be a little bit more common. So then you have the project, the company, or the contact as your object. So this will depend on what part of the site that you're working with and that you want to see an automation on. So probably the project page is going to be a pretty common automation flow. So as you see, you just click and it unfolds for you and shows you the process as you're making your selections, which is nice. So you're not inundated with all this information right away. So let's say I want to set up an automation to trigger when I'm updating a project, and then I'm going to choose the condition. So a common one would be like if the sales status changes to a particular status. So let's say that you want to set up an automation that when a project goes to a contract status, that you want something to happen. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select my sales status as contract. That's my condition. That's what the thing that's going to happen to trigger it. So then you would click next. And then after that, you choose the action. So let's say the sales status goes to contract. So I want an email to be sent out automatically. And I don't have to be monitoring it and thinking about it. So if I want to email somebody in this selection, maybe I want to email somebody on the project already, and then I can select like the project contact. Let's say you want to send the contact on the project an email right after it's been won, or you want to email like your estimator or your sales rep a certain email. So you come in here and you just make your selection, and then it will give you the chance to choose the template now that you might want to send the email. And then you can create the template from here and add it from here. And then you've completed the automation. You just click save. And then, oh, see, it prompted me because I didn't do what I told you have to do. So name of automation. And then save will now bring us back to the main page. And then you have to remember that you have to turn it on. So if you don't turn it on, it's not going to work. So this little button over here is the button for making sure that it's on. And that's a pretty common one of like, oh, this automation's not working. And it's because it's not turned on. So that is a basic flow of the automations. Obviously, the pencil icon is where you can edit. You can also copy the automation right here. Let's say you don't want to create a brand new one from scratch, but you want to use like a lot of the same criteria. And that button just does that for you. So you don't have to input some of the same fields. You can just edit it from there. So
I'll reiterate some of the points that you told us to watch out for. Yeah. So there are prompts within the system. If you forget something, it'll be your helpful little reminder to tell you what needs to be in place before you can save the automation. And then, like Christy said, making sure it's turned on. So if it's gray, it's dormant. If it is blue, that means that you're good to go. Does anybody else have any questions at this point? You can drop them in the chat, and happy to point them in Christy's direction. At any time we can do that. Otherwise, I know that we have some enhancements on top of that to talk about. So maybe we jump into using the or function.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and edit this automation here because I had set this one up for an or possibility. So what you have in here in your conditions, so I showed you like if you're choosing event-based project, and then I want it to trigger on an update of the project. Let's say that you have a scenario where you want it to apply to multiple things. In the past, before this enhancement, you had to create multiple automations. So that can get really tedious, right? So we're trying to create that ability to have complex scenarios and it be like as simple as possible. So in this case, as you can see, I set up the condition to be when a sales status goes to an active bid or a hot bid. So what that would look like when you're coming in here is I'll start this from the main page. So let's say you're coming in here like, okay, this will apply to this status or, and then you just click the or button and you can actually keep clicking that button. I have to make a selection first, but I think you can do up to 5 ors. So you can just like keep adding within the same one. So you want the same thing. So what or means is you want the same thing to happen in the potential of multiple scenarios. So if it's active or hot or cold, then I click save, then the same thing happens. So that's the concept behind or. And yeah, that's a brand new aspect of it. Something that I'll include, this was part of it in the first place, but just to make it extra clear, there is the and function, which already existed, but let's say this is multiple criteria. So let's say my status, I want my sales status to be in a particular one, and I want to add something else. I just click add condition again. So let's say the sales status is in work order and my sales rep is myself. Okay. So that means that both of those things have to apply before the automation triggers. Whereas in the or situation, it's one or the other. Does that make sense?
It does. I've got one question that came through for you. I know we'll get to Dan's question in just a minute, so I'll save that. But Aaron asked if text will be an option.
A text message?
I think that's what is meant here.
Okay. It is not. That's actually a feature that we are looking at in the future. We've had a few requests for it. So this is just like a side note, but very important for a webinar. We are heavily influenced on feedback. So bombard with your suggestions. So the more that is something that people are asking for, the quicker that something like that will also be implemented. So texting is something that we've looked into in general because it's not a feature that exists anywhere on the site yet, but we definitely are going to see it in the future. So yes, not currently.
But like Christy said, you can either talk to your regular contact at FollowUp or submit it on our website. We are constantly taking that feedback loop and really implementing it inside of the product. And as a new team member myself, going through the onboarding and looking back on the last several years, I see so many changes that have directly come from customer request. So that's really fun to see.
Yeah.
Did we go over specific times for sales activities? Will you rehash that?
Yeah, I will. Okay. So this is an additional enhancement. So, and I haven't gone over it yet because I've just been focusing on the sales status, but let's say in your project update that you want it to involve let's see, actually this would be an action item. So I'm just going to make a selection here and then I'll go to the next page. Okay. So then not email, it'll be update. Okay. So let's say I want my action item to be to set a sales activity. So I come in here, so into your project filter, you're going to have, this is like all of the fields in your project page. So let's say I want, I can't remember what I actually put just now, but let's say like, realistically, when it goes to contract, I want to set my proposal delivered activity, or maybe it's the follow-up. I think that's probably more realistic. So I want to follow up in a certain amount of time, right? So you can choose a fixed date or you can choose a number of days. So let's say I'm like, okay, when this goes to a contract in 7 days, I want this sales activity, or I want this sales activity to be set for 7 days later. So previously you weren't able to select the actual time, which we needed to, right? Because that's what we do in our sales activities. We set specific time for when they're, they need to be completed. So I'm going to type in the 7 and it will show right away 7 days later. And the default time is midnight. So probably not when we're going to be doing your sales activities. So we click the clock and then it opens up the time to be able to select. So I can just scroll in here, choose, let's say I want to say 9 a.m. Then when this triggers, it will automatically set the date of that sales activity for 7 days afterwards. And it chooses that time exactly. So again, super friendly to make our lives easier. That's the point of automations. Yeah, so that one did not previously exist with the sales activity options.
That's definitely a good one to have. I know it's this balance with automations of trying to use robots that exist out there, right? Use the technology to make our lives easier, but we still want to keep the human element. So I love that you can pick a time that maybe works best for your customer. They're more likely to read it during that hour of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
What about implementing the clear date and time feature?
Yeah, that one actually came directly from a suggestion. So clear date and time. This is, I imagine that the scenario that you would want to use this is like if the project was like if it was dead. Let's say you're like, okay, I want to clear all this out. I don't want to get any notifications about it anymore. So if you came back here, okay, when the sales status moves to sales rep, not sales status. So if I come in here, do lost, save, then I want it to automatically clear everything out. So I would save that, and then we haven't gotten to the add other actions, but let's say it was the follow-up one and you wanted to retain the rest of your sales activities and so forth. So that, again, it's clearing things away that then you don't have like a clutter of notification. So again, trying to make our lives easier. Yeah, that's the use case for that one.
Do you want to go ahead and get into add another action?
Sure.
And then we'll go back to the questions.
Yeah, that's a good segue because it's like right there. So let's see. Let's say that when you've won a project, you want to send an email a couple of times. Okay, so I want to email my project contact. So I'm going to come up to select this email project and my project contact. And let's say, I'm sending them an email. Thank you. Whatever you might want to say in your regular follow-up email to them. But then let's say I also want to send a different email to the estimator on the project. So then you could come in down here and click add another action. And then you come and make that selection. You can also remove the action if you're like, oops, nope, didn't want to do that. And as you can see, you can continue to add more actions. Again, this is another layer of what we were talking about with the or, where it's keeping us from having to create multiple automations, and you can just keep them all in the same one when it's like, I want the same, like multiple things to happen on the same trigger. So then I would come in here and I could select a different template. You also don't have to do 2 emails. You can choose to update the project with a different field going. And I mean, there are so many possibilities that you can do with this that we really can't measure all of the use cases potentially of them because you can get really complex with all the scenarios with adding multiple actions, adding the or function. Yeah, so it really has like opened up the capabilities of this for follow-up on a daily basis.
So Christy, one of the questions we have in the chat on that note would be, if you make these changes, will they be changed on the project page? Do the automations replace the information on the project page?
Yes. So if I am choosing update and project, and I'm choosing a selection in here. So let's say that I wanted to update let's say you wanted to pass off the project. Like if you wanted to change the account manager, or you wanted to change any of the sales activities, anything like that. When you trigger that automation, that field gets automatically updated in the project. It also will show in the comments the log will say automation next to it. So that's how you know, like, you would come in and be like, what happened? Who changed this? And you look in the logs and you see, oh, this was a result of an automation, and it will show you the name of it. You'll be able to go back and actually trace that trail. But yes, this is making updates automatically for you on the site. And as you can see, company and contact are also objects. So this can affect the company page or the contact page. We're stretching the limits of what we can update without having to, think about it. So it's really the enhancement of that. Not having to work as hard. But yes, we are updating directly in the page. Yep.
A question we got about how you trigger the send for an email. Can you do this in a way that takes into account business days so that you're not sending these emails on the weekend?
Yes, that is actually part of the latest enhancement. So I hadn't talked about time-based yet. So when you're talking about time-based, you can choose minutes, hours, days, or weekdays. So weekdays avoids the weekend, obviously, for that very reason. So if you want this to only send on a weekday, you would say trigger this, 2 weekdays or 1 weekday or 5 weekdays after that thing happens. You can also select in here. So this is where it gets pretty complex. So don't be afraid to contact support, contact one of us to hey, can you help me come up with the right automation for this? Because you can get really complex with it. And we're not going to be able to go through all of these cases in this one time frame. But let's say that I wanted to say 5 weekdays and automation triggered today. So today's Tuesday. That would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday. So that would be next Tuesday. It would be 5 weekdays later that it would trigger. But let's say I only want it to trigger on a specific day of the week. So I can choose on the next, which would be Thursday. Let's say I wanted it Thursday. So then it's not going to trigger until 5 weekdays and then the next Thursday. So the whole point of that it is to control, in an email situation. I don't want to blast somebody on the weekend. Let's say you're working in follow-up and it's late at night. You don't want them to send an email immediately at 10 p.m. On a Friday night or something like that. So yes, that's what our time base would be for.
Thank you. And do holidays count as business days?
They do. So we're just incorporating a weekday scenario and not taking into account the actual holiday calendar. Yeah.
Good to know. Another question that came in, is there a set amount of automations that you have with your basic plan unless you upgrade?
Yes. So the team plan has only 5. That's a limited to 5. I believe that's per user. I could be wrong. We should check on that.
We might need Joseph in the chat to jump in on that one.
If I'm wrong. But then past teams for Pro, it's unlimited. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, if you're hearing this, but I believe that's the case.
You said Pro plan is unlimited, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. I am typing these answers in real time so that people can see them in our Q&A section. Let's see if you hit everything on the first part of our to-do list. What about accessing those automation logs? Let's show them how to do that.
Yes. And this goes hand in hand with everything I was saying about the log and the actual the comment section of the project, where it tells you this triggered because of an automation. You can also come in here to the logs. It's just this tab right here. This will show you all of the triggers that have taken place when an automation happens. When you see these dashes right here, it's oh, why do I have all this missing information? It's actually because it did not involve those things. So on a project automation, nothing for company or contact is going to show up, or user or sequence, because that had nothing to do with it. Especially in these cases, it's an email was sent. So it's just showing you the name of the automation. It was an event-based. it sent an email, and then this was the object, which we'll get to that object in a minute. But when it actually involves changing a field, that's when you'll see things in old value and in new value, and it shows you what field was changed. So this is a good way to go in and be like, what happened here? Or did that automation work? Or did that automation, why did this happen? And then you can come into the logs and actually verify it. So yeah.
And Christy, we have a question from another Christy. It's spelled differently, but she wants to know if those logs can be exported as a CSV or other file type.
That is a great suggestion, and no, it can't. So I'm going to write that one down, because that's definitely something that we want to do probably soon, because that's a really good suggestion. So yeah, as of right now, no, but I'm going to take that one to heart pretty quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. And good news, Joey confirmed that you were right. You are unlimited with your automations in the professional plan, and on the team plan, you have 5. So
Awesome.
with those basics covered, I think it's a good time to get into non-user emails. And Dan brought this up in the chat early on. He had a feeling we were going to go this direction. So if I set up an email automation, does the email address need to be a follow-up user? Very
good. So I'm going to go over here because I already created this one. So when you are we got a lot of user feedback on this. So when you trigger an automation, this is the way all standard automations work. If you trigger an automation and the action object is an email, that email will come from you. So if I'm the person that clicks save in the project or the company, and the trigger was an email, that email is going to say from Christy at FollowUp. And maybe you don't want it to be you, right? If you have, so this can be in a company setting, or it can be a company automation, or just in a personal one. So let's say I have all my triggers set up, my action objects set up and everything. I come over to email. I've got the option to email a user, that's a user in FollowUp, or somebody on the project. But if I want to email outside of the entire system, okay, I'm going to click non-user. And then for my filter, I will have the ability to type in the recipient. So you manually type in the email, and you can add more than one in here, and click save. For the sender, this is where you would choose either yourself or another email that you have integrated with. So I'll show you real quick in another tab where you can find this. So this would be in your settings. This is actually the exact same scenario as when you integrated your email address in the first place. So down here, you're going to see department external email for automation. So this is just for automations. There's no other use for this anywhere on the site. So if you come into your settings in here and you see this and you connect, so I connected our support email address. What that means is that if I'm over here and I have selected the support, that when the email goes out, it will appear from that department email. So it will say support, and it won't matter who triggered it if it's a company automation, and I have to stress that. So this would I mean, you could do it as an individual, that's fine. But I imagine that a lot of teams are probably going to want to, I didn't select my template, do this like for your whole team. So what would have to happen for that is that, so like in my case, I could create this, I did create this on the company automations page, and I turned it on. So that means anybody on this FollowUp team who triggers that automation, it will send an email from support. That can be any email address. Doesn't have to, I mean, we are FollowUp, so our emails have FollowUp in them. But you could, your accounting department email, or, whoever you might want to integrate with. And then that email is a generic email, based on the Microsoft sender. Like it would be based on whatever the sender is of that email that, however it goes through normally, if that makes sense. I hope that's not confusing. So yeah.
If anybody needs clarity, put it in the chat. I love that we've had about a dozen questions submitted so far, and we're peppering them in as we go.
Yes. Yeah, but that's our newest addition. As far as, I mean, all of these enhancements have been at the same time, but that one was a pretty big request. So it was exciting to be able to deliver on that one.
Definitely. Now, I know that we did put a little warning in place inside of the system because you need to make sure that you have a unique name for each automation, or otherwise that error message will tell you stop. Is that correct? Can you show us a scenario?
Right. Yeah. So I think the other one was called contract status. So if I tried to name this the same as that one, and I clicked update, it's going to say automation name already exists. And that's just so that you're not getting yourself confused with your logs and, you know, which one did you turn on, or were they slightly different? Something else, and I don't know that I mentioned, yeah, I mentioned the copy button. But if you copy, so like, let's say I copied this automation, this exact one, it already existed, and I even updated the name, right? But if I don't make any change to it at all, it will say exact automation flow already exists. Please update the criteria and try again. And again, this is to like prevent loops and stuff. So let's say you accidentally, or somebody on the team accidentally created the two automations that were the exact same, then, you know, we're reducing the potential that like multiple emails are getting sent on a trigger. And you're like, why are, you know, people are like, why are you sending me multiple emails? And then, you know, we're all confused and don't know where that's coming from. So just different error messages that are in place for those reasons to help us not trip over ourselves. So yeah.
Right. The idea here is that you're really going to utilize your pre-made templates for common tasks, and those could be used by several people. And then by adding on the or option, you can consolidate similar automations.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, because now when you know, previously people would have to set up 3 and 4 automations to do multiple things on one trigger, and now we're just making it much more simple. As you can see, you can come in here, and once you have a lot that are created, it's kind of like, what is happening? You know, it's like information overload on your screen. So we want it to be, you know, the most straightforward experience that you know, that we can possibly have to clear out the clutter in our brains.
Great. So I'm going to do one final call for questions, as we want to give you guys some time back today, right before the holiday. But the one that we have right now in the chat, I know that we have most of the major emails integrated into FollowUp CRM. What about texting platforms? Do we have any integrations built around those?
We don't. Yeah. All things that are related to texting right now, it's not something that has been fleshed out quite yet. So on that note, though, I would love to hear like specific use cases that anybody would like to see with it, whether it's an integration with a texting platform or it's the texting ability from the site. That will speed up exponentially, like us making it user friendly and fitting and being tailored to people's actual use cases. So if that's something that you would like to see, please feel free to send us an email with like the most detailed specifics of what you would like to see, because it really is helpful beyond just, I'd like to see this, like to know, like, why would you like to see that? What would you like to see it do? That way we actually hit the nail on the head when we actually go to do that enhancement. So yeah.
Right. So if your company is already using a texting platform
Mhm.
and you'd like it to integrate with FollowUp, give us the specific name of the platform and then tell us more about your use cases, like Christy said.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Okay.
workflow, like how it would fit into that workflow, everything, so that, you know, we can integrate it seamlessly when we reach it. So yeah, that's so valuable. All of that feedback, it really is.
Oh, here's our last question that we're going to take today. Do we have the ability to add attachments to automations? Like if you wanted to send a sales one-sheeter as part of a follow-up email, would that be possible?
I don't believe so. It would fall within the template. So let's look at our templates really quick. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a template question for like the, you know, in our template updates ability. So Yeah, that is not a current thing, but again, another thing that I'm going to mark down because that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, Joey has some insight on this. He said you can hyperlink the doc inside of a template. Oh, I love that option.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And a lot of times that helps with different firewalls that companies will have set up as well. So instead of an
Right.
attachment that could get flagged, if you, on my computer, it's, Command K, and you make that text turn blue so that you can click through, that's a safer way to do it and might get you better results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good feedback.
Okay, I will put that in the chat as well. Thank you, everyone, for coming
Yes.
today. I think at
Yes.
one point we had up to 40 people watching. And if you would like any more information about this feature, please let us know. And we've told you, we'll say it again, any more feedback you have about what you would like to see inside of the product, you can always send that to support@followupcrm.com. We hope
Yes.
that you have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Bye.